This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Welcome to the 33rd episode of the Deployment Dojo. This is a live show where we introduce and discuss software installation topics using the WiX Toolset. I'm your host, Rob Mensching, and joining me once again is my very good friend and still first student of the dojo, David Edson. How you doing, David?
Pretty good, thanks.
All right, so we are on a side quest today. Tom, I hope, is here so he can kind of follow along, maybe get some of his questions. But we have Bert, Martin, Robson, Paul. This is great. We're getting a crew. Another Wednesday, another show. We're here. We're on a side quest today. We are going to do something that is way out of our comfort area, probably out of our, technically our skill level that we would go along. But Tom asked a great question at the end of the last episode, and I thought this would be fun to do. You ready?
Let's do it.
Did I scare you a little bit? All right. So what are we doing? What we're doing is we have a the story kind of goes like, you know, we've been building this software. We have our dev team, and we've been just kind of going through our usual installation, uninstall, install, uninstall, like a normal user would use our installation software. Very typical, right? We're all very used to that, right, David?
Right.
You're right. Yeah, right. I install, uninstall, no big deal. What if we had a large enterprise come up to us and say, hey, we want to use your software, but we need to deploy it out to hundreds of our users, thousands of our users, whatever. And so, and because you have some of this configuration, we want to be able to configure your software so it automatically deploys out to our thousands of users or hundreds of users, whatever, in their enterprise, the same way for this very standard configuration we have on all of their computers. Well, how do we do that, right?
Okay.
All right. We went from building software for individual users to install and uninstall to now building for two customers at the same time. One, the IT guys that have to push this software out to those thousands of people, and each of those thousands of people that are using our software. So we have to think about both of those customers now. We've just expanded our customer base in a huge way. And Tom was asking some questions about, well, how do you go about configuring all of this in for an enterprise situation? And it turns out the Windows installer has features that help us do exactly that. So are you ready?
All right, let's do it.
All right. Here we go. We're going to jump into it, and we have to do some cleanup first. So let's get right down into the code. I have prepped all of this a little bit. I've prepped the 33, the start episodes. We're on episode 33 branch. We are doing work for the IT guys. Let's go ahead and get this committed and into the code. All right. So we are off to the races. I was digging through here, looking a little bit ahead, and I noticed something that we had hanging around here. Sorry, I want to look at the class library. So, you know, in our class library, we had this debate about where to put our registry keys for configuring where our data file gets put on the machine.
Right.
You know, it's kind of go back and forth like, should it be this or should it be that? Well, it turns out we have some configuration stuff here tossed in with our console app, right? Why are these registry keys tossed in here with the console app 1? Right? Mm-hmm. And worse yet, console app 1 is directly reading this configuration as registry keys instead of using our class library that we created. Remember, that abstracts away all of those reading of the registry keys so that we can control the configuration between our setup and the app and have it like nice and contained inside class library 1. Does this sound familiar?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So I think the first thing we should do, because we're going to do some configuration in space, let's clean up this mess a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and, I don't know, we're going to add to this class, because why not? I'm going to say public static string. And what are the two things for programs? We have the addition. So get addition. And public static string get customer. I think that's what the other one was, right? Right.
Yep.
No big deal.
Yep.
Cool. And what are we going to do? We're just going to take this code out of here, and we're going to return. You're like, okay, what did you do? You did. I mean, we didn't do much here at all. The namespace. Wait, what is it upset about? Oh, it wants explicit
Extras.
cast. Yes.
Yep.
It wants me to make sure that this comes back as an object. I need to turn it to a string because that is the way these things work. All right, cool. Return string there. Format. Okay.
All right.
Really simple. So we've isolated this away. Delete this, and now we use class 1 because we're already using it to get our count file. We will use it to get our customer. Class 1 get addition. All right. Now I've done that, we have essentially moved our configuration for these bringing these reg keys back into our class library. This is my choice. I mean, you guys can manage it however you do it inside your application. I kind of like the idea of having a library that manages all of this. So we have kind of a place where we as setup developers go and look at this while the rest of the dev team just use it. It's an abstraction layer between the two directions, right? Our customers, our devs using it, and us trying to maintain it. Kind of makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, a buffer between those. At the same time, I do not want these registry keys tucked in here with console app 1. They do not belong here, all right? So let's go ahead and pull them out, and let's put them in our class library like we had the other one here. So I'm just going to drop a component in here, and I'm not going to put them in the same component. I'm going to drop another component here, drop that in there. Okay?
Okay.
No big deal, right? I basically did the refactoring. One, to pull the registry keys out of console app 1, use the shared library, and then brought those registry keys into our class 1 library WXS file to kind of centralize all of it together.
Okay.
Right? Cleaned up things a little bit, right? Now setting the environment path for this console app 1, yeah, that's fine. We'll keep that inside this file with this XE because it's the thing that uses that. All right, little cleanup.
Okay.
Nothing too crazy yet. Why don't I go ahead and say, put all these changes in. Save, yes, please do save it. And let's do our refactor, addition, and customer configuration. Cool.
You're gonna run it once?
Nah, we're gonna trust it. We're gonna live by the edge of our seat. I have a lot of things coming, so we're gonna have plenty of times for us to fix any bugs that I put in there. And if I did, well, then maybe we'll do an amend commit. You guys can watch me go through that experience.
Okay.
All right. Here's another thing. This customer is just marked as valued. This is supposed to be set to the IT guys that are using it. Like, they're supposed to see their name inside the thing, not this hard-coded valued thing. And if you remember, I don't know, several episodes ago, we had the whole binder variable with the library that was letting us set this for each install. And we used a property at one point, so this could be configured. Why aren't we continuing to set that here in a property, right? So let's go ahead and make this value configurable. So I'm going to use a property, and then I'm going to define the default property here. ID equals customer, and value equals, nope, not that, not all that, valued. Isn't that what I had there before?
Yeah, value,
Yep, so what did I do? I took this value out of here. I extracted it into a property, which is a variable that can be set from the command line, right? So that when people deploy, they can change this so they don't have to call themselves valued. They could call themselves Acme Corporation or, Contoso or all the other different names that Microsoft uses for their pretend companies. Right? This makes sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
All right. I feel like maybe we should try this now. Are you feeling a little nervous that we've gone too far? Maybe. All right, let's go ahead and run it once. At least test the console app. I will do the build, and I will bring up the Dojo sandbox. I was gonna say the Dojo, but I kind of like the idea of the sandbox being the Dojo. There. We're gonna spin up our sandbox here. Our build succeeded. I like that. It'd be nice if this bar was like green when it succeeded and red if it failed, but that's just me and my streaming trying to show everything. All right. We are going to use the trick from, I don't remember his name because it wasn't a real name. Dino Peeveskin. All right. Open a command prompt using the Explorer. Hey, Miyuki's back. That's great. All right, here we go. Nice big thing. What are we going to do first? Let's go ahead and do MSI is X, which I belt test. Actually, yeah, we'll just do it. L star V, because we're going to be looking at these logs.txt, quite a bit here, I expect, when things go wrong, but nothing should go wrong here. Let's run it. Everything's going. CMD to create a new command prompt, and we're going to run our console app with the correct path set. Console app 1. Ta-da! It still says our valued customer. We didn't break anything.
That's good. Yep.
Does it have it? Is it actually working? Let's see. F5. Uninstall. We'll uninstall from here. We'll try to run console app 1. It's not around. That's good. So what we're going to do now, we're going to say, because the property is all caps, we can set it from the command line, right?
Right.
Customer equals, I don't know. Which one can I write best? Contoso. The company that, oh shoot, I lost it. Customer equals, you know what? Let's make Fire Giant a customer. All right. We're going to use this at Fire Giant. Fire Giant's going to use the belt test package. All right, here we go. So we expect now this property to get set in our registry key, and we expect our console app to show it. Run. I should be able to rerun it here. CLS console app 1. Register to our Fire Giant customer. Ta-da! Yay. Everything worked. Right?
Yep.
Right. Great.
Looks good.
It looks great so far. Okay. So this is fine, and this is totally a way that now customers could put this in a batch file or in a system and deploy this out to all of their customers, and that can work. But there's actually a feature site MSI that allows you to do more powerful configurations, not just things set in the command line. And so I want to dig into that, and they're called transforms. So what a transform is a diff between two MSIs, and it can actually, you have your base MSI and you have your updated MSI, and if you apply a transform to the base MSI, you can create the updated MSI. So we're going to go through and create one of those. What this allows you to do, why you'd want these, is that when you install an MSI, you can have it apply a transform. So when we're thinking about the IT guys, we want them to be able to create a transform for themselves and then apply that transform into the systems and have it go out to all those 1,000 users with just that transform without having to put all these extra things on the command line.
Okay, so just different versions of belt test package right there.
Yeah, so what it'll allow them to have, we will have one belt test package that we produce. They will create a transform and then apply it, and it will go out to other companies. And this is kind of the experience we're going to get to. All right. And you're like, well, what's the difference between passing on the command line versus applying a transform? Transforms are much, much more powerful. They can do many more things, even though the experience is kind of similar. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So that's the next step for us. Do I want to close the sandbox? Yeah, let's just close the sandbox. Okay. Yes, I will bring it back here very shortly. All right. So we need to create a transform. That means we need two MSIs to create a transform. All right. So I'm going to show you the way that doesn't work. Well, it works, but it's not going to work for the customer, just to show you how we can get a transform and how they kind of work from the command line first. All right. And then we will do the real thing. All right. Okay. We've built, this is what our MSI looks like. We just did a whole bunch of tests, be able to send it on the command line. And here's belt test package. I'm going to copy this. Copy belt test package MSI to original. Doesn't really matter what I call it. Original MSI. Okay. So I just copied it. I made a backup of it. So when I build again, I will be building belt test package will be a newer one. Right. Okay. That makes sense. So I got an extra. I got two of belt test package right now, original and belt test package. So, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put our brand new customer in here called Fire Giant. And then I'm going to build. And we wait a second. Build started. Doobie-doo. All right, good. And then we come back to our command prompt. All right. So we now have this belt test package that is different from the original. You can't tell from the size. You can't tell from the timestamps. Okay, that's not very helpful. But now it's made me guess. I was like, there's going to be something that's going to tell me they're different. All right. What are we going to do? We're going to bring the sandbox back. I should have just left the sandbox running. It wasn't that dirty. I just want to double click on the MSI and make sure without any configuration from the command line or anything, that it shows up as a FireGiant customer.
Right.
That's what we want to see in US. All right, run that belt test, not the original belt test package.
Yep.
And open a command prompt and run console app1. And if everything worked, there, it says FireGiant customer. All right, cool. So, and if we installed the original, it would say valued customer, right?
Yep.
All right, cool. It worked. Yay. So let us create, let me pull my sandbox out here. Let us create a transform. How do you create a transform? Well, you take MSI A and MSI B and you use a tool to generate a transform, or you could call some installer APIs. Well, it turns out WiX has a way of doing just that. So WiX has a transform command in it, subcommand in the MSI, and it's got a lot of features to it. Let me go ahead and make this bigger. I need to get the Dojo. It's a little bit too bright. All right, there we go. All right, so for a WiX MSI transform, there's all these switches. We'll go through that. You take your target, your updated MSI, target base MSI, same thing, your updated MSI, and then you specify output of a new thing, and notice it's called an MST. This will be a binary file that is the transform between those two MSIs. All right? Okay. Now, turns out when you're applying transforms, there's all these changes that you can make to your MSI, and you can basically say, hey, I want to ignore the errors that happen when applying all those changes. For example, if I take a transform and apply it to another MSI and the transforms don't quite match up, there's all these different things that you can ignore. Like ignore if the add of a change already existed, or if deleting something that wasn't there. Each transform has each operation. It's adding, deleting things and out of the MSIs. You could tell to ignore any of those failures as it's doing that. Okay, basically making your transform say, look, just try to throw this at it, and by default, if the transform isn't able to do exactly all of its operations, the MSI will fail. It'll say, this is a bad transform. But you can say, hey, I don't care if any of these things fail. Just give me whatever the transform can best apply. And you can think of maybe cases where that's helpful or not. In our case, we're going to apply everything. Okay?
Okay.
All right. And then the next thing that you can do is you can narrow how a transform applies to an MSI. So for example, you could say only apply this transform to MSIs that have the same upgrade code. So the transform will remember the upgrade code, and if you try to apply it to another MSI that doesn't have the right upgrade code, the installer will say, nope, this transform does not apply to that MSI. That's very useful if you want to make transforms that only apply to your stuff and not everybody's stuff in the world. Right? You can do the same thing for the product ID. That's a GUID inside the MSI. It has to be exactly the same match. It basically narrows all these things. You can say only apply it to this language. Right, so you can see all these different ways that we can validate it, and then we can start saying, "Hey, do the same thing for version numbers of the MSIs, but check only the major version, the major minor, and upgrade version. So all three parts, right? So you could all these different validations. You could say how you want it to, and then finally, the last thing you can say is, "Hey, I want you to validate the version is exactly the same, or less than or equal to, or less or greater than, or greater than." So you can again just target the transform to the MSIs you want. This transform applies to the exact same matching upgrade code and version, which would be one MSI across maybe different languages. Make sense?
Yes, makes sense.
All these ways of narrowing it. And the error messages are pretty brutal if your validation flags don't, it basically says this transform doesn't work. So if you're having problems applying transforms, you know the transform's correct, these flags will sometimes be the thing that gets you. All right, so let's create one. WiX transform. And I want to add some of these validation flags. I like the upgrade one. And the validation flag, I think we'll do, how about just same version right now? All with our same version. Yeah, I think we'll just do that. Okay, so we'll only target the current versions. Seems like a reasonable thing to start with. And then I think we pick our target MSI, which is the original MSI. Then our updated one that we just built, belt test package. And then we say output, and I'm going to call it, let's see, original.mst. Hey, Tom is here. Tom is the reason that we're here talking about all this. So welcome, Tom. You are just the point where we're creating a transform using the WiX toolset. No worries. I don't think, Tom, I think you probably understand the scenario that we've kind of went through. You'll, of course, be able to watch back And I think the next part, you've come at just about the right time, because this solution I'm showing you, spoiler alert, isn't going to work for real. All right, what are we going to call this MST? I don't know what to call this MST. How about the MST? All right.
Okay.
Okay, I need to give it a name, and I don't want to give it a name of the things that are already used here. All right. So what I'm doing, I'm saying target exactly the same upgrade code, same exact version number, our original MSI, and our belt test package MSI, right?
Right.
Oh, transform the additional argument. Oh, oops, I forgot. MSI. So WiX has many commands in it. This is a MSI specific command. This is only used for Windows installer databases, not for like bundles. Bundles don't work this way at all. Things like that. So that's why it's WiX MSI transform. Get the command line right, it works better. Yay, there we go. No errors, which means from the command line tool, it worked.
So
we now have the MST. Yay. Right. Okay, so what do we do with this? Well, we go back to our sandbox, and I'm just going to delete. No, I'll keep it. All right, we just did a demo where we double clicked on belt test package and installed with FireGiant as the customer, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So let's go ahead and open a command prompt, because we're going to do that, to the location where the MSI is built. Program features. Okay, we're not installed. All right, everything is good. This is our same folder. The MST is here, our original MSI, and then our belt test package. Okay?
Right. Yep.
So we're going to install the original MSI. Do you want to see the original MSI installed again and see that it's valued customer first, or can we go straight to applying the transform?
Yeah, we go straight to applying the transform.
We trust that the original is the copy. All right.
Yeah, we've seen it quite a few times.
We have seen it a bunch of times. All right, L star v I.text, or no, that's my habit. Log.text. All right. So now we want to, at install time, to apply the transform. Turns out you can just do transforms, not forms, and it's plural because you can technically apply multiple of them. You can put multiple transforms on this command line. In this case, we have one, so we're going to apply one.
Okay.
All right. And that's it. I'm not saying the customer, right? I'm not saying the customer, but when we created that transform, the difference between the original MSI and the belt test package was that FireGiant was the customer, right?
Right.
Install. Notice everything's the same. All right.
Yep.
That transform, what happens is when Installer opens the MSI, applies the transform, does all those line edits, modifies the MSI, which in our case changes the property from valued to FireGiant behind the scenes. All right. And then runs. All right, let's close this window and open a new command prompt. And if everything works, what do we see?
Should see FireGiant for the customer.
That's
running
right.
console app 1.
Come on, bigger. Console app 1. Boom. Okay.
All right.
Pretty cool, huh? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Great. It's another way of applying that those changes, those configuration changes to the MSI. Okay.
Okay.
This is great. This is perfect, right? We could just ship this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Except there's a problem. How did we build this transform?
From the command line.
Ooh, that's true. Yes. How did we get the data to build the transform? We came into our source code, we edited, and we built a whole new MSI, and then we created a transform. So what are we going to do when we get another enterprise customer? We're going to put them in here.
Oh,
Contoso. Right. So okay. Oh, and then we get another one. FireGiant, and then we need to change it to Contoso, and then we need to build all these, and then we need to create transforms, all of them, and then we need to ship the transforms and all that kind of stuff out to everybody. You see the problem?
Yeah.
We have to essentially build the transforms for all our customers, when really what we'd rather do is let them build the transforms themselves. But we don't want them modifying our MSI in any arbitrary way. Right?
Okay.
We don't want them like changing class library DLL to something and then have it like accidentally deleting, because they could remove that file from the MSI with the transform. Like, just don't install that thing at all. And then none of our stuff works because all of our executables need class library 1. Right? We want to control the way that they build their transforms. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
Right? So it turns out WiX itself can't help you with that, because WiX, the tools that we've been talking about here inside MS Build and the command line tool we were just using, WiX MSI Transform, wix.exe on the command line, those tools are for build scenarios, for us as developers building the software installation package. Those tools are not generally useful for the IT people that are then going to deploy said software. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. And there may be some tools in WiX, and you could, if you're a enterprising IT admin and have a little bit of a developer bent, you could use the WiX Toolset tools to do all kinds of really powerful things with MSIs, right? But that's not what we expect customers to do. All right. So what we need to do, I'm going to put it back. We're all right where we were. We need to create something for the IT people that does exactly the set of updates that we want them to be able to do.
Okay.
Right? And in this case, right now, it's the ability to change this property inside a transform. Right? And so we want to expose that to them. How are we going to do that? We're going to create a program. And this is where we get fun. All right, new project. We haven't added a new project in quite a while.
Right. It's been
all right. We're going to create a console app because I don't need to create a UI for all this stuff. You might want to create a UI for this. Again, who's going to use this console app? This is for our IT. All right.
All right. So just config stuff.
Exactly. It is a tool that we give to our IT enterprise people and say, here's a tool that you can use to configure our software. Right? So let's go ahead and try this. Oh, so Tom actually has a scenario where he wants to build transforms for each customer as part of their CI/CD system. So it contains the license key for the installation. So you can use the WiX transform scenario that we just kind of showed you there to do that. Let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to keep that in back what Tom said, because Tom actually asked for the exact scenario that I said we couldn't do, which was build a new MSI for everybody in transform. If you do want to control that, we'll come back to that one. The general use is usually you want to give a tool to the IT people and to let them configure it, right? And what do I call it? I'm just going to call this IT config, right?
Sure.
All right, here we go. By the way, did I warn everybody this might be a little bit of a longer episode? It's gonna be a little bit of a longer episode.
You warned me, so.
I did warn you. I forgot to tell everybody else. That's all right. We are about halfway here, maybe a little over halfway. Okay, hey, look, it's a console app, right? It's called IT config. This is a tool that is not going to be inside our installation package. That would be kind of silly, right? If we put it inside our installation package, IT people would have to install our application to get the configuration that they want to then use to configure the app that they just installed, right? So this is a tool that is designed to be separate and only sent to enterprise people, really. Like, you send this to your mom and it'd be like, here, use this to configure this application. You're like, no. That's not the way your mom is going to be modifying it for her individual computer. This is for IT people that want to do it in mass, all right?
Right.
All right, so let's get started. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to first want to validate it. And I've done a little bit of this already, but let's go the length. And I don't know how much we want to do this. Let's do. I'm going to look at my cheat sheet a little bit to make sure I go a bit faster. But what are we going to do? We must specify the belt test package path and the customer name. Okay.
Okay.
No, -1. Doesn't matter. Whatever. I'll give them an error code when they do the bad thing. Ooh, I can't type there. Okay. Return 0. Okay, cool. All right. So let's name these arguments a little bit. Var MSI path equals. I like to do path dot get full path. Thank you. Of arg0. All right. So that's our. This is our original MSI. We'll call it that. All right.
Right.
Okay. And then I want to get the company name, which is just going to be args1, the second arg. So first arg is the belt test path package, the MSI, and then we're going to change the company name. Cool.
Okay.
All right. So on the command line, they're going to say IT config path to belt test and then customer name. All right, here we go. Next thing. All right. Oh, I forgot. Now we are going to use some WiX software, and we haven't talked about this, but we're going to go and manage our NuGet packages. We haven't looked at NuGet packages in quite a while because, well, WiX hasn't been changing. We do have a 401 coming soon, but not yet. So what do we want? In the WiX Toolset, there is a wrapper, a managed wrapper called DTF, Deployment Technology Framework. I think what it is. And we have this Windows installer. the Windows Installer APIs are all native APIs, and WiX provides a nice managed wrapper around that. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that managed wrapper and use it because we're going to be talking to some Windows Installer APIs.
Okay.
Deployment Tools Foundation. Thank you, Bob. So the first thing we do is we're going to say, you're like, great, Rob, what is a database? Original MSI path. Windows installers, these MSI files that we've been dealing with are actually tiny little databases. Custom databases with a completely custom way of accessing them and everything. But there actually are rows and tables inside the MSI. And so the API that the Windows installer provides you is SQL based. It's you open a database and you then modify these things. And what we're going to be doing underneath is we're going to be modifying the property table. That's what this ends up being. We're going to find the row called customer, and we're going to change the value to whatever we want from the command line.
Okay.
All right, that's what we're going to be doing. So here I have opened the database. Great. So what's the next thing? I need to database execute query. This is always where I have to get it right. And I can do interpolation, right? Okay. Update. You probably know this better than I do, Dave. I think you're better at SQL than I am. Property. Set value equal to the value of company name. All right, so we'll take that variable, put it in there. Set that value where the property equals what I call customer. I'm gonna go double check. Customer.
Think so, yeah.
All right. That SQL syntax probably looks pretty comfortable to you, doesn't it? Right. Yeah.
It's okay.
Update the property, set the value column to this thing where the property, not all caps, Rob. It is case sensitive. That would not work. Property column equals customer. All right. Windows installer has a strange choice where they chose to make the first column, the ID column, the same name as the table. So property will be customer, value equals valued. All right. Right?
Yep.
Cool. Oh. I need to save this. I need to modify this MSI and save it to another location, right? If I modify the one that I have, I can't create a transform. All right. Temp MSI path.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Get temp file name. Yes, please. Thank you. All right. That'll give me the whole path. Yes, uniquely file that. Okay. And then, so I'm going to make this change. I need to save it. How do I save it to another MSI? Well, it turns out that Windows installer has a very nice API that you could say, open this MSI, save to this one. So when I'm done, I will call db commit. What does this do? It opens up our original MSI, modifies this property, and then commits it to this name over here. Pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. So we now have, from the command line, the ability to create a new MSI with an updated property in it. Now, how do we create a transform? All right, here we go. Var original db equals new database original MSI. Thank you. I want that one. Using var updated db equals new database temp MSI path. All right. So I've opened two databases here, the original MSI and the updated MSI. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Right. All right. Updated db dot generate transform from the reference, the original db, and then I need to save it to the output MST path. I should probably go get that. Var output MST path equals the path dot change extension. Thank you. Of the original MSI path to dot. No, what is that? Dot MST. There. Yep. So what do we do? We're going to create the MST right next to the original MSI with a different extension. Cool. That seems like a reasonable default for IT tool, right?
Right.
All right. And that would do it. You'd be done. Except, and this threw me. This is the thing that I knew I needed to test this because there's all these always something that will catch you. Remember all those validation flags that we wanted to set?
Right.
You do not set them when you're generating a transform. Why? I don't know. It's the Windows Installer API. They made strange changes. Instead, you do this create transform summary information. So you have all this extra information in the transform, and that's where your errors go. So the strange thing is you have to do the original MSI again, And then the transform file, and this really tripped me out because I was like, wait, it's going to overwrite my output MST. It does not overwrite them. It just updates the MST. I do not like this API at all. Can we just say that? But it is the way it works. And this is a thing that will probably get people. We didn't say anything for errors, right? We said no ignoring of errors. And then for transfer validations, we said upgrade code must be the same. And we want to OR that bit with the transform validations. Okay, let's get to them. Transform none. Transfer validations, upgrade code, and transfer validations, what did we say? Equal?
Right.
New equal base version. I think that's the right one. Original DB. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so what do we do? We changed the property inside into a temp MSI path. Then we open that temp MSI and we set generate transform based off the original to our output path. And then we generate this extra information to add, we don't ignore no errors, and validate that the upgrade code and that the new version is equal to the original MSI version. This is the same thing we did that from the WiX transform, the WiX MSI transform command. Man, I have a hard time getting that MSI in there. Does that make sense? If you go and look inside the WiX MSI transform, because remember, WiX is open source, you can go dig straight into that. You will end up finding stuff that ends up looking like this, somewhere deep down it, and all those flags in the command line get turned into these bits right here, 2048 and 256, right? Oh, wow. Or together, and that information gets stored into the transform, right?
Okay.
Cool. Yay. Woohoo. Something. Right.
Cool.
That's
I guess
great. That's great, Rob. Does it work?
Right. Exactly.
All right. So let's go ahead and test it. All right. We're going to test this on, I'm going to run it on my dev box. We will then deploy it into the sandbox. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So what are we going to do? Let's clean up a little bit. Let's clean up a little bit because we have this original and this belt test and all these other kinds of things. So let's get rid of our original. We don't need original. And we don't need the MST. Not that. All right, there we go. And we can go ahead and get rid of log text that we keep doing there. All right, so there's belt test package. Okay. So we have belt test package. Let's make sure that we're back to valued customer, right? And we have our program here that if it all runs through, everything should give us an MST named the same as the MSI, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm just gonna say build the solution. That's going to build both the MSI again, if we have any changes to it, and it will build our program as well. All right, build succeeded. Great. So what do we have? All right, so we have our belt test MSI right here. Yeah, and let's go Dojo source belt test IT config bin. Is there a debug? There it is. There's itconfig.exe. Great.
Cool. Yeah.
Great. It's there. Does it work? That's the question. All right. itconfig. We run it. It says, hey, you must specify the belt test path, package path, and the customer name. Great. So our belt test is right here. There's our belt test MSI. And what name do we want? We'll do Fire Giant test. Or Fire Giant is, no, not cool. Hot. There we go. Okay. All right, I put quotes around it because we want to change the name to Fire Giant is hot, just because we haven't used that yet.
Right.
Makes sense?
Yes.
If this works, what do we get?
You'll get the, I guess, an MST file, right?
That's right. Should get an MST right here. Oh, and it failed. Function failed during this. Fetch the view. All right. Did not work. And didn't get a good error. Function failed during execution. Great. So what are we going to do? We're going to take these pieces of information and we're going to debug our XC and see if we can figure out what's going on. Set as startup project, go to properties, debug, start the project. Here are our command line arguments, right? That looks good. Mm-hmm. And we need to set our working directory because we ran it from over here. And clearly we need better error messages when things go wrong if we were to ship this to an actual customer.
Right, right.
All right, F11 to step into the code. And let's see where it is failing. Okay, we open the MSI. It's probably this, because this is often where things go wrong. Yes. All right. The function failed without execution. All right. What did I type wrong in here? Because this syntax is always fun to get right. I'm going to pull the query out so I can see it. Because I just have something typoed in here. Almost certainly. And SQL is not my strongest syntax suit. So I'm going to look over property, update property. I didn't misspell anything. Set value equal to the company name where property equals customer. I don't see anything. All right, we're going to change our input a little bit and see if the issue is. We're going to change it so it has no spaces because I don't think I tested spaces. Because who knows? Maybe that's my problem. Let's try it again. This is what our query looks like when we go update property set value equal FireGiant2 in quotes where property equals customer.
And it went fine, huh?
I haven't run it yet. That's the next thing. Boom, still busted.
Yep.
All right, I have to bring over my cheat sheet. Let's see. This worked. How is this different? They're not different. Oh, execute
query.
What's the difference between execute and execute query? Query expects a select statement. It returns rows. Execute runs a SQL command. Okay, there you go. You probably learned something. Did I mention how the Windows Installer APIs and DTF error messages are not really helpful? Something went wrong is what it was telling me. Yeah, thanks. All right, here we go. I want to go back. I want the spaces back because that amused me.
Yes.
Okay. All right, here we go. Step. I should have just YOLO'd it from the command line, but there we go. Haha! Okay, so the problem was we were saying execute query, which expects to return rows. An update does not return rows. You just want to execute the command. All right, please save the MSI. It has saved it to this temp folder out here. We're going to find out right now when we open those if that was a problem. It opened that. It's going to generate the MST. It's going to update the summary information in it with all of our error flags that we want to check. And we are done. And let's go back. Did it work? Ellis. Oh, we have a belt test MST.
There it is.
Ta-da! And it is smaller than the original MSI. It's only this big. Our MSIs and everything is so small that there's just an overhead because the MSI is a database and things like that. So there's our transform. Right. Should we see if it works?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So if this works, David, what are we expecting to see?
Well, we're going to get the Fire Giant for Fire Giant is hot for the customer.
That's right.
When we run console app 1.
That's right. That is what we want to see. And it is going to be done by applying this transform that we use this tool to build for us. Build bin x86 debug enus. Use Dino's command. Big. All right, here we go again. MSI.
So we're the IT guys doing this right now.
Correct. Great. So that's a good point. Thank you, David. So we are now testing as IT people, right? It's like, and we were actually IT people when not when we debugged the IT config, but if we ran it from the command line and it worked, we would be those guys. Yes.
Yeah.
Transforms equals, and the name is belt test MST. Yay. And we will log because if anything goes wrong, we want to see it. Log.text.
Okay.
MSI exec/I belt test transforms equals that, right?
Right.
Go. Where's? Good.
All right.
Open up a command prompt. Make this big. Console app 1. Our Fire Giant is hot, customer. Cool. No, hot. Anyway, sorry.
Yes.
All right. So here's a tool that we wrote that we then could start doing more and more work in here to make it set more settings for us, right? Configure the database.
Okay.
All right. So can I show you that it is actually a database? All right. So there's this tool that you can get from Microsoft called Orca. Stands for one really cool app. Orca is a tool that I wrote as an intern for on the Windows installer team years ago. And you can use it to open MSI files. And we haven't done this before.
So you just to look at MSIs.
You can look inside. So, with WiX and this nice hierarchical information and everything kind of laid out with all the code, WiX takes all of this and boils it down into this database for MSIs.
Sure.
Orca. One really cool app. You can see all these tables. You'll see a bunch of tables that we don't talk about because the Windows installer just handles them for us, takes care of everything for us.
Is Orca part of WiX? I mean, like when you install WiX, do you get?
You do not. WiX does not come with a table editor. Orca is part of the Windows, the Windows installer SDK, which comes with the Windows SDK. So it comes from the Microsoft SDKs.
Okay.
Oh, that's not what I want. I want a property. And so here we are in our property. Remember I said there are tables. So these are the tables. Here's our property column, customer, and there's our value, valued. Cool. Now, transform, apply transform. And that is not the correct one. It's in the wrong folder. Let's go to the correct, too many folders. Source, Dojo. No. Dojo, source. Come on, Rob. All right. Belt test, where do we build? Belt test package, bin, x86, debug, ENUS. There's our belt test MST that we built using our tool. So you can go to transform, apply, and Orca will apply that transform and show you. And you can see it over here. There's this little green line on property. Because guess what? That's the only thing we changed in this whole MSI. What did we do? We changed this value with this green box to Fire Giant is hot.
Huh, cool.
So you can apply the transform. And you can see up here, this is going to be real small. Belt test package transformed by belt test package.mst. Ta-da! So you can validate that your transforms actually worked using Orca. We close the transform. Poof. We're back to properties valued. So you can see that this is it. Apply transform. We'll apply that belt test one again. And it will say Fire Giant is hot. All right. Close that. And the last thing to do is too hot. All right, there we go. I'm gonna run it again, except this time we're gonna use our tool. All right, that was fast. Orca again. We're gonna apply that same transform. Apply that transform, but we rebuilt the transform using the tool. It did not error this time, and this time it says Fire Giant is too hot. So the tool's working from the command line, just like it did when we ran it in debugger.
Yeah. All right. So you made this just basically to, well, I guess it wasn't exclusively to check out transforms, but it's a way to do it without having to run it.
Right. So the way I like to talk about Orca to people that are using WiX is that you can kind of think of this as the assembler, a disassembler, the thing that lets you take apart the lowest parts. So if you're like using WiX and you think WiX is doing the wrong thing, you can drop in and disassemble the MSI and look at it and go, oh, well, WiX is getting the wrong value. That shouldn't be the case anymore. Most people just say, hey, WiX did something wrong, it's not working. And then sometimes we have to use Orca to go and make sure that the values are correct. But yeah, so as a WiX developer, we sometimes, I won't say often, because we're really stable and things generally work really well, but sometimes have to go down and look at it and go, oh, I see, the MSI got the wrong value because we did something funky in the tooling, right? We wrote Fire Giant is hot in the first column and customer in the second column. And you're like, what? Oh, there's this. You can imagine doing that in the code. So those kind of things. Well, otherwise, that's why we haven't talked about Orca. And I told you that this was going to drop us deep in the deep end.
Right.
For this very, very special scenario, but allowed us to do all these things. We got to see how to do it using WiX MSI transform, where we had to build a second MSI to make all this work. And then we got to see how to use a specialized tool to set only those things that we wanted to.
Okay. So this would be, I could see that. So more in Tom's use case, he might be doing it more from the command line, the transforms individually for, whatever reason, versus this right here is you're giving a team a tool to do their transforms.
You're giving your customer a tool to build transforms. And the important part is that this transform tool, this tool is very narrow. It only sets this property. It doesn't go off because we could start doing other things to our MSI, and maybe we'll continue to grow this tool as we go. But it is important that I control the command line to this tool. Therefore, I control what this tool does so that they can't go and transform the wrong things.
Would this program more be like IT config, customer property only? I mean, if we if you started doing other
Sure.
properties, would you include them in here too?
Let's drop the sparring real quick. We got 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
No. This is good. Because also Martin asked a good question. I'll get to that in a second as well. All right. So this is set on the command line, right? You can't set this in the command line. What if we don't want people to set it from the command line?
Right. If you,
like
you had to use this
normal users, we don't want them. That's easy. There. Now they can't set it from the command line, right? Right? Because it's not all uppercase anymore.
Yep.
All right. So let's go update our program. Now set property where customer is customer. Case matters inside the Windows installer. You'll find that. The case always matters. There. So what have I done? I have now made this thing. I'm gonna undo. Let me undo these real quick, and I'm gonna, through the power of Git, I will stage all these. Poof. All right, those are staged. All right, now let's redo those stages. Okay, mixed case. All right, so there we go. Lowercase customer. Well, Pascal case customer. Got it?
Yep.
All right, so build solution. Are we installed here? Oh, we need to. Okay, fine. Are we uninstalled here yet? Yes, we are. Let's uninstall that while the build is going. Build succeeded. That's good. Remember, this uninstall works inside the sandbox because the Win installer stores away that MSI that it installed, so we can build a new copy while it was there. Anyway, just for pedanticness. All right. And we've changed it. So let's run our tool again. And we're just going to go back to Fire Giant. A nice, clean, and since it's only one word, I don't need to capitalize it. There. All right, I've created the transform. So we use the tool to update the Fire Giant's hot, setting the customer with the mixed case. Right? Makes sense? Right. Okay. Yes. So I'm going to do this first. MSI exec switch I, belt test MSI, customer equals Fire Giant. It's actually customer equal. Spell, Rob. Spell. There we go. What are we going to get?
An error, right? If you don't have customer, I don't know. I don't think you can do customer like that, right? Or can you?
I'm not going to get, I'm not going to get what I want. I'm not going to get an error. It's going to be.
Oh, it's because it got the default.
Yep, I got that default. Exactly. Very good. Console app one. Ta-da! Still valued customer. Cannot be set for the command line. All right. But let's uninstall. Dude, I don't know why I keep using this to uninstall. I can use the command line. It's so weird. I keep going to the UI to uninstall. It's the same. Transforms. There we go. MSI exists with our transform that we rebuilt with the mixed case thing, right? I did that just before we jumped over here, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Install again. Here and console app one, and now it's Fire Giant.
Yep, there it is.
So we made a decision to no longer allow that value to be set on the command line, and now you have to use our tool to be able to configure that property.
Gotcha. Okay.
Is that what you want? I don't know.
Yeah, it makes sense though.
All right. So do you want to keep? I don't know. Right. There you go. Here's a comment. Maybe we'll keep it this way. I don't know. I'm conflicted. Which way do people expect it? All right. So which leads us to Martin's question is, where do you say the border is between using transforms and going all in on properties and conditions? And it really depends on your customers. Do you want them to run another tool to create a transform to apply to your MSI? Some people, I don't know how common that is. Transforms have some extra benefits, especially when you're trying to do that deployment to 1,000 people I mentioned. You can hook the transform into that and it just like automatically gets rolled out to everybody without really long command lines. But a lot of IT orgs also just like to see all of the properties on the command line. So it's kind of like, what do your customers want? How do you want to validate it? And where do you want to do the work? One of the features in Office when I was working on Office shipping was the Office configuration tool, Office configuration wizard, OCW, Office configuration wizard, because it had a whole wizard UI experience that you could go through, and it basically had the same thing we were doing here, stored all these things, not thousands, maybe thousands. There's a lot of settings that you could configure through the Office customization wizard, and it would produce you a single transform that would have all that configuration, and it would have just been, the command line would have just been enormous. So in that case, the transform was really nice. So you can do that. And Paul's point is the same that here, you can hide your properties now because they can't be set from the command line if you want to. So in Tom's case, where he has these license keys, maybe he doesn't want them to be set from the command line and he wants to force you to use the transform, or he wants to force you to use a transform to set it correctly. Well, there, now the property is not all uppercase, can't set it from the command line. Therefore, you must go through the transform that is provided. It's the same as, setting your scope. Do you want to make it a public variable or a private variable? It's those kinds of decisions in here. And it's very specific to your use case. Here, I teach David, I teach you guys, so you have the options and then you can apply them as you see best fit for your product out in the world. Cool?
Cool.
Other questions, David?
Can you open an MST like you can an MSI with Orca?
Remember, an MST is a transform against another MSI. Right. So you have to have a base MSI, open it, and then apply the transform to it.
Okay, so
you cannot just open a transform.
It doesn't make sense to open that file by itself.
Yeah, Orca won't have. In fact, if we go look, let's see. I can try real quick. Go Orca belt test MST. Fail to open MSI database.
Okay.
Not a database. You have to open an MSI and then try to apply transform. And then you may find out the transform doesn't apply because it has all those checks in it. So transform, that gives the transform an opportunity to say, hey, this is the kind of thing I'm doing.
Right.
Instance transforms are a perfect case for my case. Okay. So maybe we'll talk about instance transform in the future more. And that they have a very specific use case and how transforms are used. So understanding transforms at a low level can be really useful to understand instance transforms. Instance transforms have a very specific use. We'll come back to that. Tom says, kind of off topic, if an MSI is installed by group policy, does that cause issues if people want to update the app later on the device by installing it on device as a user? So usually in the case where you've deployed through group policy, the users aren't allowed to install it locally. And yeah, the MSI has a setting of whether it's deployed through policy or otherwise. I forgot, it's not pre-installed. There's a property that actually gets set, if I remember correctly. There's a whole bunch of bits and pieces there that can go along. But usually if you're pushing out through a group policy, that means your IT has locked down your system, so the users can't deploy it anyway. And those kind of things. So you don't tend to end up in those mixed situations, but the one installer will handle them. It's like, hey, this product's already installed, and it'll be average from group policy per machine versus per user, all that kind of stuff. It all works the same way. It's just one more level of complexity on top of it. It's just one more customer base, right? We now have what customers? We have the end customers and we have the IT admins as our customers as setup developers, both of them.
Right.
So we have to think about both of them and what they need and what they want. And usually the IT team is all about controlling it and making sure it fits into their environment properly, without creating disruption across, thousands of users, that kind of thing. But deploying it out via group policy, but then later have it auto updating itself. Oh, so yeah, auto update. So to that end, if you push out through group policy, most IT admins do not want the apps auto updating. They want them controlled. They want to roll out the updates. That's usually why you're doing group policy, because then you validate that the app works and then you get to choose to deploy it out to all that. So I haven't seen many IT admins that are like, hey, let's control this through group policy and everything, and then let all the end users be updating the software itself. That kind of goes against, like, no, we want to validate it, make sure that we push it out to 1,000 users, and then we'll just let it change itself on. It's like, no. We will get the new version, validate that it works with all the other software we have in our system, and then deploy it out there. Although that might be changing a little bit, but group policy is definitely designed in the world of the IT admins are controlling the world. They like it that way. The ability to control it. That's really what this all comes down to. The ability to configure and control what goes in the environment, because they have to make sure that the software works with all the other software that's going out on the machines and is compliant and yada, 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 all those different things. So it's all about control so they can validate and make sure that the world works, however large their world is. Cool. Anything else, David? Things I missed? Other stuff to talk about?
No, I think you put a bunch into this episode.
Yeah, this was a fun one. So this is a fun side quest. We did not get killed by the monster at the end or whatever. I think we did a good job. I think you wandered along. Oh, I need to start pushing this stuff. All right, so while that's happening, is there anything else? What does this change? All right, we need to decide. Are we keeping all caps or are we going to keep this comment in this mixed case thing? That's, I think, the big question to close out today.
If, like, by default, we're going to allow properties to be changed.
What's our story? Exactly. What is our story? Is it... allowed to be set for the command line or not?
I think we allow it at this point.
I think so too. I think for future episodes, I'm going to want to be able to set it for the command line. I think we'll just do that. All right. So we are not going to take these changes. We'll instead be taking these changes. The customer was moved to a property. We extracted that. And then our whole application here. All right. I think we're good to go. This is a create IT config to customize customer name. Haha, customize customer. Via transfer a MST. There we go. Cool.
Yep.
Boom. Committed. And then I want to push these. Push. Yes. And create a pull request. All right. That's what I've got this week. I need to, this is episode, you've been watching, episode 33. Configuration for the IT crowd. Yes. I think that's it. Right? Let's create the pull request and hopefully everything builds because, oh, yes. All right. We probably have some build work to do, actually, David. The build guys are going to be mad at us because I don't know that we wired in the IT config. And, well, we certainly didn't create an install for the IT config to send the IT config and all those kind of stuff.
Right.
But, you know, whatever. I guess we need to handle upgrades, otherwise someone forgets to add to command line during upgrade. Yeah, so Martin has brought up upgrades a couple times. I think that's actually what we're going to be talking about next week is the upgrade scenarios for this, because I think that's one of the last things we have to do is making sure that everything works when we go through upgrades, because we haven't been doing many upgrades lately, David. We've been just being happy with whatever version we're on. We're gonna have to come up with some extra version numbers, make sure we test them and do all that kind of stuff to make sure we don't lose our configuration, because there's some special little issues that we have to make sure that we handle correctly. And that might be the end of configuration, and we'll move on to the next topic. I think that'll be pretty fun. We'll see. Might be a couple more episodes of configuration. But these are fun series. I hope you guys enjoy them as we wander around. This side quest was really fun. Thank you, Tom, for asking the question and proposing it. And I think we're set up to come right back and do all this again next week.
Yep.
David?
Sounds good.
All right. So we'll be back next week. We'll do all this. Thank you all for being here. And we will pick it up and answer some more of your questions next week. All right. You guys keep coding. You know I am. Cheers.
See ya.